Okay, I think we're ready for the last presentation today, and then we'll of course have the discussion. And I'm being told that the minister is planning definitely to join. So let me welcome Cremer, or give a word to Cremer from Helmholtz or Forschungszentrum Jülich. I'm sorry for having trouble pronouncing the name. And I'm glad that you join us as well, Christian.
Thank you, Martin. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here today. It's a big honor for me to join this panel and to give you an introduction and some insights on the Helmholtz Association and, of course, innovation and transfer. At the Helmholtz Association, we already learned a lot about transfer in the German science system. And there is a German saying that roughly translates to everything has been said, however, not by everybody. And with this regard, I try to at least add some new aspects and information to the discussion, which hopefully is relevant for you. So my presentation will basically be divided into three parts. First of all, I will give you an overview on the Helmholtz Association as a research organization in the German research landscape. I will then go a little more deeper and more detailed into the innovation and transfer instruments and strategies at the Helmholtz Association. And last but not least, I will try to illustrate these strategies and instruments at the example of Forschungszentrum Jülich, or Jülich Research Center, which is one of the centers of the Helmholtz Association. So let me start with the Helmholtz Association as an organization. Helmholtz aims to contributions to solutions for the grand challenges of mankind, be it energy, research, and health. I will get deeper into that later. So what does Helmholtz basically divide from other research organizations in Germany? So there's basically two things. First of all, a lot of our research revolves around large-scale infrastructures. For example, colliders, neutron sources, satellites, research airplanes, research ships, supercomputers, all large infrastructures like this. And the second thing, which is a bit different in Helmholtz concerning to other organizations, is that we focus or organize our research into so-called strategic programs. And the funding mechanism behind this program is the so-called program-oriented funding. And this is basically how we organize our research. And I will get a little bit more details to you on this later on. So, as I said, the Helmholtz Association is, as the name says, association of 18 legally independent research centers all over Germany. And all of these research centers are very different concerning their research portfolio, their size, and their strategic focus. For example, we have research center like the German Cancer Research Center in Heidelberg, DKFZ. Some of you may know this institution, which solely focus on cancer research. And we have other research institutions like the Karlsruhe Institute for Technology, KIT, and also the Forschungszentrum Jülich, Jülich Research Center, which focus on a very broad and wide portfolio of different research topics, and also are quite larger than other centers. So Forschungszentrum Jülich, the laser pointer doesn't work, is located at the very western border of Germany, near to the Netherlands, and basically between the cities of Düsseldorf and Cologne. So since I will get back later to that, I just wanted to let you know where the city, the metropole region of Jülich is. Actually, it's a very small town with about 10,000 inhabitants. So a little bit facts and figures on the Helmholtz Association and the funding of Helmholtz Association. Helmholtz comprises about 44,000 employees at the moment, and as you can see, of this 44,000 employees, approximately 40% rely to scientists in a more closer sense, and 40% to infrastructure and administrative personnel, which is a specificum of Helmholtz because of the large infrastructure, as I said. So we'll need a lot of staff to to hold this infrastructure running. Concerning the budget, Helmholtz holds a budget in 2021 of about 5.3 billion euro, of which 60%, or let me put it differently, 3 billion euro are public base funding in the closer sense. There's additional money for specific strategic initiatives, and about 30% of the whole funding of the Helmholtz Association comes from third-party funding agreements. This is basically the same slide in a different kind of way. What's posted here is the base funding of Helmholtz, and as you can see, the base funding is 3.7 million. Part of this is special funding for strategic initiatives. However, this is still money from the federal government, and the rest of 3 billion euros are related to the so-called program-oriented funding. So this is basically the research and funding mechanism that Helmholtz evaluates. So, and how does this program-oriented funding work? Helmholtz as an association divides their research into so-called research fields, Forschungsbereiche, which are listed here: energy, health, earth and environment. You can see the 6 research fields. And within these research fields, strategical programs are designed according to advice of the federal ministries. And these programs are designed overarching between different centers. So it's not one center, one program. However, in this programs, different centers work together. So it's cooperation, but it's also a bit of competition, because the programs are in competition with regard to the funding. And these programs are then periodically reviewed, all 5 to 7 years, and with the results from the review, the funding is then distributed to the programs and in the end to the centers who participate in these programs. As I said, Helmholtz strives to contribute to solutions to big global challenges, and with this regard in Helmholtz, innovation and transfer of research results has a certain relevance, and this relevance is increasing. And as all other research institutions in Germany, we also have a person as a name host, so to say, Hermann von Helmholtz, one of the last universal scholars, so a physicist by training. He also performed research in the medical field and in the biological field, and Helmholtz always was aiming that his fundamental research was also applied in society and industry, or at least in the medical field. For example, he invented an ophthalmoscope for examining the human retina for certain diseases. So, and also he was the founding president of the Physikalisch-Technische Reichsanstalt, so the predecessor, if you will, of the Helmholtz Association, which was around research management of large-scale research, and therefore the Helmholtz Association was named after Hermann von Helmholtz. With regard to numbers and overviews on technology transfer in the more closer sense, we see here listed the specific numbers. Since 2005, which was the year when the program-oriented funding started in the Helmholtz Gemeinschaft, 254 spin-offs were released. This comes down to approximately 20 spin-offs per year, so IP-driven, technology-driven spin-offs from the Helmholtz Association each year. Of course, industry cooperation, especially with regard to our large-scale infrastructures, is an important topic in Helmholtz, and therefore there are a lot of cooperation projects. 3,100 is the order of magnitude, which hold revenues of about 150 million euros per year. And of course, with regard to IP and licenses, we have over the whole association about 1,400 license agreements in place, which result in approximately 12 million euro revenues, at least in 2020. All these revenues come from IP contracts, and so IP patents are an important topic for us. 400 new patent applications per year are filed within or throughout the Helmholtz Association, and build a portfolio of about 13,000 patents overall. So, however, there is a certain shift in the understanding of transfer and the relevance of transfer in Helmholtz, and I will get to this on the next slide. But with regard to, let's say, old school technology transfer, we have a certain set of instruments and mechanisms at the area of the association, of the Helmholtz Association, which tries to enclose the whole value chain or the innovation chain from very basic research, early findings, onto validation of these results or this project onto the transfer into industry, well, hopefully. And without going into all the details, we have certain instruments which rely more on network building, cooperation with industry to get in touch with relevant stakeholders, and also we have a lot of funding mechanisms which are open to all centers and groups of the Helmholtz Association, which try to address all aspects of the innovation chain. So there is validation funding, so money for projects which are at an early stage, basic findings which might have an impact for later applications. So you can receive money for projects of validating this projects. We also have startup financing. This Helmholtz Enterprise is the name of the program, which is open to all the Helmholtz centers. And also there is a specific program which allows the centers of the Helmholtz Association to establish their own innovation funds, also with the goal to enable every center of the Helmholtz Association to take measures which seem relevant to their innovation ecosystem. And a few of these examples I will give you later when we discuss Forschungszentrum Jülich. As I said, there is a certain change in mind in the whole research system, but specifically in the Helmholtz Association, that we see that transfer means more than patents and spin-offs and licensing, but that transfer is also transfer of knowledge into society. So it's not all about the money, it's everything, as Helmholtz defines it, where science-based know-how or scientific results come to practical use, but outside of the scientific community. Everything which relies to this criteria is considered as transfer. And in the best case, of course, this transfer generates an impact which is significant, sustainable, and transregional, so for the whole of Germany. But as I said, this is the best case scenario. With this approach in mind, and to kind of operationalize this mission, Helmholtz had an intense strategy process, or innovation strategy process in 2021, which tried to comprise all of the single strategies of the Helmholtz centers into a broader context and to formulate some synergistic branches and see how this works out. So whoever is interested maybe in the details of the strategy, because it would spoil the time here, I put the links of the strategies into the slides, because it's like a 300 pages pamphlet, so highly interesting, of course. However, maybe it's not the time and place to discuss this in detail, but you can see that later if you like. However, what is the basic essence of this transfer strategy in Helmholtz? If you look into this, you will see that, as I already mentioned, technology transfer in the classical sense is one major aspect of measures and strategies. However, we see that knowledge transfer, so political advisory, involving social institutions into the research process, so knowledge transfer is a topic of equal relevance and relevant for society. And the whole strategy of Helmholtz now tries to comprise both of these aspects of transfer. So since this is a little bit misty, if you will, to say what does that mean, transfer is not only technology transfer. There was a large project with the German Stifterverband and centers of the Helmholtz Association, together with a couple of German universities and universities of applied science, who tried to build a framework, the so-called transfer barometer, the transfer barometer, which tries to quantitatively and qualitatively describe what technology transfer and knowledge transfer are all about. And taken together, these are like 60 indicators. And of course, every research organization is not supposed to click all the 60 indicators and see what the numbers are behind that. But the idea is that each research organization or university in the German science system can see what is their specific transfer profile. So it's a large difference if you think of a university which has a focus in the humanities, or if you think of a research center which maybe is more in the energy research field. So the transfer profile of these organizations is very different. However, both perform excellent contributions to transfer in the broader sense. And as I said, the transfer barometer is one instrument to get a better grip on this discussion. And also here, I put the link on the foot of the slide. So if you like, you can see what indicators are in discussion there. And we make a short break here. Thank you.
And just a brief comment. Welcome, Mr. Minister, Mrs. Langšádlová. We will continue with the presentation and we will debrief and invite you. Thank you.
Thank you. I will go on then. I was just elaborating on how to measure knowledge and technology transfer with indicators in certain fields, and the transfer barometer is one of these instruments which gives us advice how to do this. So this was kind of technical and strategically to this point. So I will try to illustrate some of the aspects that I presented to you on specific examples of the Forschungszentrum Jülich. Forschungszentrum Jülich is actually the organization where I'm responsible for transfer and innovation, and therefore I feel more comfortable to talk about the research center in a specific way. There. The Forschungszentrum Jülich, or the Jülich Research Center, as I said, is one of the large research centers in the Helmholtz Association, and we are a multidisciplinary research center focusing on energy research, on information, which comprises biological information, so biophysics and brain research, but also supercomputing, quantum computing, and neuromorphic computing, so the whole spectrum of what we understand on information. And bioeconomy is also a growing topic, a topic of growing relevance in our research. So in numbers, the Research Center Jülich has at the moment around 6,800 employees. Not all of these persons are located at the city of Jülich, but we have several branches throughout Germany, so 5,000 people are actually in the city of Jülich in our research center. In 11 institutes with a total budget of around 800 million euro per year, and about approximately 40% of this budget are third-party funding. So the Research Center Jülich, as most of our research centers in the Helmholtz Association, focus on fundamental basic research. However, we think that fundamental research and innovation and transfer are not so far from each other. And of course, we have one highlight which we like to present in this regard to prove this hypothesis, and this is the work of Professor Peter Grünberg. Professor Grünberg won the Nobel Prize in 2007 for his work on the so-called giant Magneto resistance. So this is a basic physical fundamental effect observed in thin layers and thin boundary layers of magnetic materials. However, this is not only a physical principle which is highly interesting, but also it is the basis for all modern hard disk drives. And actually the work of Professor Grünberg was patented, and there was a double eight-figure income from licenses with regard to the hard disk drive licenses. So we always try to show this example because it shows how fundamental and excellent research and transfer and innovation can go hand in hand. There it is. So in the Research Center Jülich, also the same as in the Helmholtz Association, we understand innovation and transfer everywhere where scientific findings are realized or applied in society and economy. So again, knowledge transfer on the one hand, and also classical transfer in the economic sense, spin-offs and licenses. So, and I brought you one example for what we understand as knowledge transfer and why it is relevant, and it is the work of our colleague Professor Seyfried. Professor Seyfried is the head of the Institute for Advanced Simulation in Jülich, and his group focus on models how atoms behave in space, so to say, how atoms move and so on. And these principles were derived and applied to large groups of people. And Professor Seyfried and the colleagues wanted to see, well, if atoms move like this and that, how do large groups of people behave? Can we see that these principles also work there? Well, they elaborated on this, and they proved their model, first in theory and then in praxis. And they now can predict how large groups of people at major events, for example, will move in certain circumstances. And this is really very relevant with regard to security concepts and with regard to evacuation concepts in the case of an emergency. However, what I want to illustrate here is this is a typical example of knowledge transfer for us. We see that basic fundamental research findings find their way into society. However, this is not a classical technology transfer topic because there is no licensed software involved, there are no patents involved, or no secret know-how which we can license. However, society has a benefit from this research. Of course, since Helmholtz is very program involved and very strategically, we have a strategy with regard to innovation and transfer at the Research Center. And again, without torturing you with all the details, we have 4 major areas of measures where we see we can achieve more with regard to innovation and transfer. And one which we consider specifically important is the promotion of a culture of innovation, because still there is a certain feeling that excellent science and application of science rule out each other. I don't think so, but this is the case, and I thought brought you examples. However, we see that we still have to go a bit of a way here. And so what we did in Forschungszentrum Jülich specifically, we built a program which is called the Jülich Innovation and Entrepreneurship Certificate, briefly JUICE is the acronym. And this is basically a program to sensitize and to enhance ability of young researchers with regard to innovation and transfer. And this has basically 2 aspects. The basic course, so to say, it's a 2-day course, is mandatory for every PhD student in the Research Center Jülich in the 2nd year of their PhD. And those PhD students who say, well, this is an interesting topic, I want to go deeper into this, they have the possibility to then do the whole certificate course, which is taken together about 8.5 days. It's too small to see all the details, and it's maybe not necessary in this audience. However, what I want to illustrate is that it's a mixed model, so to say. So we have online courses, we have practical hours, and we have lectures all along the innovation chain, from the first idea until how can I validate this idea? So we engage the students to talk to industry partners and just get feedback if is this relevant, and then build a business model, and on the end get on stage with that. So we have an innovation contest where these projects are then presented and can receive a prize. And we think this is relevant because we engaged this program 2 years ago, and just on Monday this week, these two ladies received the innovation prize of the local state of North Rhine-Westphalia. And Ms. Figuera and Viviana Rincon-Montes from Mexico and Colombia, respectively, work at the Forschungszentrum Jülich, and they came together in the JUICE program, which I just presented, and they both perform research in the area of biosensors, and they set up a project and found out that their research might lead to an interesting new approach for the digital rapid sensing test for the malaria disease. And this is also a patented technology now, and they are actually are now in the process to build a startup around this idea, and for this for this research, this patent, and their approach to build a startup around this, they received the innovation prize from the local state of North Rhine-Westphalia, which of course we are very proud of, but also it is proof for us that our approach to sensitize young researchers for innovation and transfer is valid and is successful. Of course, we see that with regard to innovation and transfer, we not only need to sensitize and to inform researchers about the possibilities for transfer, but also we need the whole set of instruments with regard to funding. So innovation is always related to money, be it as a result of innovation or especially in the process. So because most things invented in a research organization are very basic and have to be validated, and you need money for this. And also we have incentive systems to highlight and demonstrate that transfer is a relevant thing to do. And since time is close, I won't show you the whole spectrum of this, but I just want to point out it is important to have the whole chain in mind and to see and to accept that innovation takes time and it also takes money. This is true, I think, for all of the projects. Why do I think this time and money is a relevant indicator? I will bring you or show you one last example, and this is the work of Professor Dieter Wilbold at the Institute for Biological Information Processing at Forschungszentrum Jülich. Professor Wilbold is a biophysicist by training, and without going into all the details, they developed a drug candidate, a peptide drug candidate against Alzheimer's disease. I'm sorry, maybe I'm also affected. So this is basically based on research and an IP portfolio of Professor Wilbold, which took more than 15 years to develop. They received funding from the Helmholtz Association. They received funding and programs from the research center Jülich. And for those of you who are involved in life science research and in clinical research know that there is a long way from a drug candidate to actual working drug which is available at the market, and it takes like 10 years and several millions of euros to be effective with that. And in this regard, we are very happy and proud that the already mentioned Agentur für Sprunginnovationen, Sprint, the agency for disruptive innovations, considered the project of Professor Wilbold worth to invest more than 10 million euro for the long-term study and the clinical phase 2 study, and hopefully to make the next step to bring this approach into a drug against Alzheimer's disease. And this is also a spin-off project. Professor Wilbold spun out the Pre-Avoid GmbH, limited liability company, a few years ago. We have a licensing deal, of course. He's also involved in the whole entrepreneurial aspect of this whole program. So I now made the whole bridge from the Helmholtz Association, transfer in Helmholtz, and the Forschungszentrum Jülich. And since we want to have a discussion, I brought some lessons learned and some ideas from our point of view, which I think are relevant, especially during the developments during the last 2 or 3 years. And maybe this is relevant for you, or we can discuss if it's relevant. So, first of all, we see that there is a certain change in mind with regard to transfer and innovation in the ecosystem. So we see that there is the technology transfer, so the old school part of transfer, which is relevant, but also that knowledge transfer in the non-commercial sense is also an important topic when it comes to research. Whatever your approach is with regard to innovation and transfer, it needs a strong commitment from the political side, from the institutional side, from the high-level management to make these approaches valid. Because it has to be underscored, in my point of view, that the technology transfer is not the sole responsibility of the technology transfer department, but innovation and transfer start at the scientific finding and with the scientists, and it's a joint approach, and it's the only way it can work. So this is what I mean when I say treat transfer like you mean it. We understand that culture is key, so we need to embrace the fact that fundamental research and application of research are not two things which rule out each other, but are actually two sides of the same coin and go hand in hand. And if we accept that and try to build up incentive programs and work for visibility of successful models and role models, we can achieve a lot with regard to enhancing technology transfer at the research organizations. And last but not least, it takes consistency. I think that the colleagues can agree with that. Most successful innovation projects, so the highlight projects on the shiny slides, take years and years and years and effort and a lot of money, and not all of them will be successful. So this is something which is really important, that innovation and transfer need trust, resources, and of course patience to be successful. And with this summary from my side, I'd like to come to an end, and thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Christian. As in other presentations, we'll do the Q&A session. So I invite questions from the audience. Nobody's. There are some hands I can see.
My name is Pavel Juruš. I'm from Institute of Computer Science, and my question is: there is, of course, a lot of technological and scientific know-how in your organization, but how about business know-how? How to build company? How to do marketing? How to get sales? Do you have some in-house experts, or do you collaborate with some people from business?
Both is true, actually. So most centers in the Helmholtz Association have a transfer office. So like me and my colleagues, and of course we have the whole portfolio of consulting services. So how to build a company from the idea to the actual founding of the company. However, we often involve third parties into this process. So either as a service that we buy in, or that we get specific mentors from our network or industry partners involved to give a certain idea and mindset into the project. So this is something that we tailor project specific. So we have our day-to-day business, consulting, how to found a company, so to say, but if we see there is a certain topic which is out of our competence, then we have the possibilities to either source this service in or regard to our network. Yeah.
Thank you. There was one more question, Michele? No? I thought?
So I've already introduced today, but my question will be regarding the students. You said that the program JUICE and the certification looks very interesting. It's kind of similar to a similar program we are doing at the technology transfer of Czech Academy of Sciences. My question will be, what is your relationship with the students, specifically with regards to the IP ownership, and what about the universities? We also have representatives of universities here, so thank you.
Thank you. This is actually a very relevant question, especially with regard to the Helmholtz Association, but I think this is also true for all other research organizations which are on table here. Our main focus are PhD students and early career postdocs. So we have master students, of course, and sometimes bachelor students in our system, so to say, but they are in the minority. So this is something which is relevant for the universities. So we are not a university. We closely collaborate with universities, but our main focus group are PhD students. For example, at Forschungszentrum Jülich, we have about 800 PhD students and something like 200 master students and even less bachelor students. But however, all of these persons have a contract with the Forschungszentrum Jülich, so that they are staff of us. So, however, when something is invented at the research center, it doesn't matter if you're a master student or if you're a PhD student or a senior postdoc. It's always the same mechanism. So, and to say it frankly, it's the IP of the organization. So, it's in Germany, it's the Arbeitnehmererfindergesetz, the law that says in Germany that as an employee of a company, your inventions are the property of the company you work with. And this is also true for the research organizations. And from that, we go further.
You mentioned that you have 400 patents per year. What is the success rate of licensing? Or?
This is very different between the different centers, but approximately, as Jörn pointed out, it's about 25 to 30%. So of the whole portfolio, approximately 25% are licensed, and only very few of these license deals are relevant above the 1 million rate or something like that. So it's a lot of license which make very little money, to be honest. So yeah, it's important. So we had very intense analysis in the German science system, which basically state that you can't make money with patents from universities and extra university organizations. Only like 3% or something like that, they make the big deals. So this is where the real returns come in, but most patents make only very little or no money, and it's important to keep that in mind. So it's a societal approach that we have.
Do you have, please, in Germany, the university programs for education of the specialists for the transfer of technology and knowledge?
We don't have, to my knowledge, no universities in Germany which focus on educating technology transfer professionals. However, we have the so-called Transfer Alliance, Transfer Alliance. So it's a club, so to say, of all technology transfer organizations in Germany, and they offer programs which are relevant for transfer professionals. And of course, on the European Union, we have the ASTP, but maybe Jörn can point out a little bit more about that.
Well, in my first slide, you saw behind my name something which was called RTTP, which is a Registered Technology Transfer Professional. And that's the idea behind this was born like 15 years ago, when one thought, well, everybody can say he's a technology transfer officer. So it's not a special job description or whatever. And we want to work on the professional development of this of technology transfer. And together with the Autumn and also with the Asian Technology Transfer Agency, we developed a program that you can do some education, you get points for it, and you have to do a case study and so on, and it's essentially in the end can receive the title of a registered technology transfer professional, and that should show that you at least have some experience in the field.
Yeah. I have to actually say that the educational program that we have developed in the Technology Transfer Office of Academy of Sciences is derived from this program. So we actually already have such a program in the Academy. Any more questions? We still have time. Okay. I will proceed then to the next phase, or the last part of the event. Thank you, Christian.